The rain fell hard against the windshield as Arman drove down the winding road that led through the mountainous countryside. His phone had lost signal miles ago, and his GPS app froze with the words, "Searching for location." He cursed softly, gripping the steering wheel tighter. This wasn't how the weekend was supposed to go. Arman had planned a solo road trip, an escape from the suffocating chaos of city life. A chance to disconnect, hike a few trails, and maybe rediscover his love for photography. He'd booked a remote cottage near a small village called Kohrra, a place barely visible on maps and barely mentioned online. As he finally spotted the broken sign that read Kohrra, EST 1887, he sighed with relief. The path narrowed into an uneven gravel track, lined with tall trees that loomed like ancient guardians. The forest felt unnaturally quiet, almost like it was holding its breath. The village appeared like a ghost out of the mist. Old, colonial-style houses leaned with age, their windows boarded or shattered. Not a single soul could be seen. No children playing, no elderly sipping tea. Just silence. He parked beside what looked like a town hall. The sign on its facade had faded, but the carvings told stories of a place that had once thrived. As Arman stepped out, he felt the air shift, colder, heavier. "Hello," he called out, but his voice was swallowed by the fog. Then, from the shadows, a figure appeared. An old man with deep-set eyes and skin like cracked bark walked toward him. He wore a tattered shawl and held a wooden cane carved with strange symbols. "You shouldn't be here," the man rasped. I booked a cottage here for the weekend," Arman replied. "I thought, the booking office is gone." "Burned down years ago," the man interrupted. Arman blinked. "What do you mean?" "The listing was online." "The internet lies," he said. "Kohrra isn't a place you visit. It's a place that calls." The old man turned and walked away before Arman could ask more. Determined not to be spooked, Arman followed the directions he'd printed earlier and found the cottage. It stood on the edge of the village, by a dry riverbed. Oddly, the lights worked. The place looked untouched, clean, stocked, and eerily quiet. He dropped his bag, took out his camera, and stepped outside to explore. He clicked a few shots of the decaying buildings, the mist curling through the trees, and the sky turning red at sunset. But when he reviewed his photos later, he froze. In almost every frame, behind a tree or shadow, stood a pale woman. Sometimes blurred, sometimes more visible. Always wearing a white dress. Always watching. Arman's heart pounded. He hadn't seen anyone. He would have remembered someone like her. He enlarged the image. Her eyes were entirely black. That night, the wind howled like a chorus of whispers. The cottage creaked and groaned. Sleep evaded him. At 2:44 a.m., his phone buzzed, despite having no signal all day. "Do you see her now?" The message had no sender. He looked out the window. She was standing in the field. White dress. Black eyes. Still. Arman stumbled back. When he looked again, she was gone. The next morning, determined to get answers, he returned to the village center. The old man was there again, feeding crows with pieces of bread. "You saw her, didn't you?" he asked without turning. "Who is she?" Arman demanded. The man sighed. "They call her Kohrra, the spirit of the forgotten. Once a real girl. Now a curse." He motioned for Arman to sit. "Years ago," he began, "this village was alive. Prosperous. Then a plague came. They believed a young woman named Alya had brought it, cursed by a forbidden ritual. They blamed her, hunted her down, and buried her alive beneath the old well." Arman felt cold all over. They tried to forget, but she never left. She waits. For outsiders. For blood. "You should leave," the man said finally. "Before nightfall. Before she chooses you." Arman didn't need convincing. He ran back to the cottage, packed his things, and rushed to his car. But when he turned the key, nothing happened. Dead battery. Or worse. Panic rose like bile in his throat. He grabbed his phone, still no signal. Then he heard it. A lullaby. Soft, haunting. It came from behind the cottage. He stepped out, against every instinct, and followed the sound. By the dried riverbed, A wooden trapdoor lay half-buried in leaves. The melody came from beneath. Against every warning, he opened it. Inside was a tunnel. Old, damp, and lined with handprints. He hesitated, then descended with his flashlight. The tunnel twisted deep underground, into what looked like an ancient ritual chamber. Symbols lined the walls. Candles long melted into the floor. At the center, an open grave. Fresh. Then, behind him, the door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed him, and the lullaby began again, but this time it was coming from inside the room. Air inside the chamber was so cold it burned his lungs. Arman's flashlight flickered, barely illuminating the ancient markings on the walls. They looked like they'd been scratched in desperation. Some resembled claws rather than fingers. His breath came out in white puffs. "Hello," he called out, his voice trembling. Silence. Then, the lullaby resumed, echoing across the stone walls. A child's voice, soft, melodic, and heart-wrenchingly sad. He turned around, nothing. But the grave in the center of the room, it wasn't empty anymore. A woman stood beside it. Pale. Dressed in white. Long hair covering most of her face. Her eyes, pitch black and endless. Arman's legs refused to move. "Alia," he whispered. Her head tilted slightly, as if she was surprised to hear her name. Then she stepped forward. The light died. Darkness consumed him. When Arman awoke, he was lying on cold stone. His flashlight was gone. His phone was dead. But the tunnel door above him was open, light streaming down. He scrambled to his feet and climbed out. It was morning. Had he hallucinated everything? The trapdoor behind him had disappeared. The riverbed looked undisturbed. Not even footprints. Back at the cottage, he packed again. Tried the car. It started instantly. He drove as fast as he could, never looking back. The trees blurred. The village faded behind the mist. He didn't stop until he reached the city, until he was surrounded by lights, noise, and life. But something wasn't right. Red triangle pointed down 1 week later. Arman tried to return to his routine. But sleep never came. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, Alia, standing at the foot of his bed, humming that lullaby. His apartment would turn cold, mirrors would fog up on their own, and he'd hear whispers through the vents. His reflection sometimes lagged. One night, desperate, he revisited the photos he'd taken in Kohrra. The woman, the figure, was in every image, but now she was getting closer. In the final picture, she was right behind him, her hand on his shoulder. Arman gasped. That photo hadn't been like that before. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. No signal. Then it lit up with a message from an unknown number. "You brought her with you." Red triangle pointed down Kohrra village, present day. The old man sat alone by the dried riverbed, feeding the crows. A woman in a white dress stood in the trees behind him, watching silently. She never left the village before. But this time, someone took a piece of her spirit beyond the borders. Red triangle pointed down final journal entry, Arman Khan. "I don't know how to stop her. I left Kohrra, but Kohrra didn't leave me. Every night, she comes closer. Every night, the lullaby grows louder. If you're reading this, stay away from that village. She's not bound to that place anymore. She's coming for you next."